It was boring. You know why? It began with just a lot of filler that no one cares about. Wow, Derek Jeter has parents? Unbelievable. I've never heard of someone having parents before. An athlete with parents. That's great. They were showing clips that weren't very spectacular from his high school career, like him lobbing a ball back to the mound after catching the third out or sliding into second base. There wasn't any new footage outside of him finding out that he had been drafted by the Yankees. We didn't really find out anything that new either outside of the fact, and this was kind of interesting, that the Houston Astros came very, very close to drafting Derek Jeter with the first overall pick in 1992. Instead, they took Phil Nevin. Now, what's interesting about them taking Phil Nevin is that the guy who scouted Jeter, a two-time MVP, Hal Newhouser, who was an Astros scout, he retired because they didn't take Jeter first overall. He's like, if I can't convince anybody to take Jeter, then I don't want him. So anyway, I thought to myself, okay, but once we get to the 90s Yankees part, because the 90s Yankees were a terrifying team, and if Jeter's the center,
that'd be cool.
A story about them. You're right, Vanessa. If it's about the 90s Yankees, I think this is a good watch.
Well, yeah, but it's just Jeter.
It's about Jeter watching the 1995 Yankees in the playoffs. Here's what's crazy. Jeter didn't play.
Yeah, that doesn't sound appealing to me.
And the funny thing was, well, the highlights of the 1995 series between the Mariners and the Yankees was cool. But they kept on, instead of circling back to the games themselves, they kept circling back to Derek Jeter was the first guy off the bench to high-five people when they came in. But it's a series he didn't play in. I would have liked to just see the series that he didn't play in.
So they should have. You think it would have been more interesting, because what it sounds like to me is if they did it about the 90s Yankees and the 2000s Yankees and included part of Derek Jeter in general.
Right. So go back to the Michael Jordan documentary.
Right.
Was it
Which
always
is awesome.
all about Michael Jordan?
No, there was a whole episode about Scottie Pippen and Carmen Electra.
And yes, or Dennis Rodman and Carmen Electra.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
There's a Scottie Pippen episode too, though. They built up the characters around him.
Yeah.
Now, maybe these characters around Derek Jeter aren't that compelling, but Jeter isn't really either. Jeter was pretty boring along the way. Like, he said one thing like, oh, I make doubters eat their words. Look at me. I'm Derek Jeter. Respect with a 2 instead of an S. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very vanilla. And that's why when I found out they were doing a documentary on him again, I'm like, okay, like, cool. I'll watch. Maybe it's 2 parts. 7 parts on one of the more boring personalities, especially when he's not going to get into the women that he dated, which is honestly the most impressive thing.
Gift basket time. Fast forward.
Gift baskets. I would watch a documentary about the gift baskets. I would watch a documentary breaking down how he gave women gift baskets, who he gave gift baskets to, who he deemed worthy of a gift basket exchange. But instead, he's out there talking about, like you said, his parents.
Right.
Fine. Whatever.
And they interviewed his parents. Cool. I don't care. I don't think many people care about that side of Derek Jeter. And look, if you're making a documentary, brevity is good. You're supposed to cut some things out. You could have cut out every single part of this. They felt the need to explain that Dave Winfield was Derek Jeter's favorite player growing up. Cool. Okay. It was sort of fascinating to learn things about Dave Winfield, but then all of a sudden, like, they're asking Dave Winfield not about Dave Winfield. They're asking Winfield about Jeter. They're asking David Cohn in 1995, hey, do you remember when Derek Jeter came out of the dugout to give you a high five? Like, they made it so that every single memory was thinking about Derek Jeter instead of the things that those guys
that were happening.
Went through, the experiences that they went through. And to me, I don't know, that's a failure as a documentary. I'm going to watch the rest of it. I'm going to make fun of it on Twitter, but I will be objective with the way that I break this down.
Yeah.
And this whole first episode seemed completely pointless, you know? Outside of learning that Derek Jeter, who was not good enough to play on the 1995 Yankee playoff team, was very good at giving guys high fives.